Many of you wrote to me over the weekend and you said, David, juror number 2 in Donald Trump's criminal trial is going to acquit Donald Trump. You have to see what's going on. There is a juror who there is no way is going to actually hear the evidence in the Trump case and potentially even vote to convict. We've got to figure out what's going on. Well, let's talk about it. Indeed, we have seen jury selection completed in Donald Trump's first of 4 criminal trials. That trial starts today in New York City. 12 jurors and 6 alternates have been chosen. And we know a little bit about the media diets of these jurors. And let me tell you what is a point of concern to many of you. I'm going to put up on the screen the answers for the jurors in terms of where do they get their news. There is one particular juror, juror number 2. Of course, we don't know these people's names and we shouldn't. And I understand wanting to be as anonymous as possible, given what they are up against here. Juror number 2 has been marked down as getting their news from Truth Social and from X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. If you look at every other juror, there are no other jurors who cited Truth Social and X as their sources of news. And indeed, on the juror questionnaire data that was published by the New York Times, it shows only Truth Social, the platform owned by Donald Trump, and X, the platform now owned by Elon Musk and dramatically radicalized by his ownership. Those are the only two news sources for this individual. And many of you are immediately saying, we have to be very suspicious about this juror. Has this juror really been vetted for objectivity by the prosecution? How is it that this individual is on the jury? There is no way in hell that someone who has one of 2 news sources as the defendant's own platform as where they are getting their news, there's no way in hell that that individual is going to even potentially vote to convict Donald Trump. And those concerns are reasonable. Now, at the same time, we have a tweet from Ben Kochman. Ben Kochman has been covering Trump's criminal trial for the New York Post. Now, the New York Post, it's owned by News Corporation. It's part of the same conglomerate that owns Fox News. So you can say, well, do we trust Ben Kochman? I don't believe he's lying about this. Ben Kochman says that the concern over this juror is misleading. He put out an excretion on X where he said, quote, "This is highly misleading. Here is exactly what juror number 2 said. Because he's an investment banker, quote, I read basically everything," he said. Quote, "I am on Twitter. I follow Truth Social posts from Trump on Twitter. I do follow Michael Cohen, Mueller, She Wrote, and some more." So I am of 2 minds here. Number 1, if it were true that there was a juror who only got their news from Truth Social and X, I would have a very difficult time believing that that's an individual who is potentially even going to vote to convict Donald Trump, whose own website is one of their only news sources. On the other hand, if it is true that this individual said, because I'm an investment banker, I read everything, and that's everything from what Trump posts to Truth Social to what Michael Cohen says on TikTok and what the podcast, left-leaning podcast Mueller, She Wrote says, and others, that is potentially less of a concern. I mean, listen, how would I answer? I don't know that I would necessarily be an unbiased juror, but I would like to say I could simply go and listen to the evidence and apply the law. My answer would also be, I'm looking at Truth Social and I would say it's because of my role as a podcast host. I'm looking at Truth Social and I'm looking at X and I'm looking at Michael Cohen and I'm looking at all this stuff. So depending on your interpretation of this, it is either extraordinarily concerning or it's misleading how it has been reported. Now, I also want to make one other point here. Imagine that there is a Trumpy, right-leaning Truth Socialite on the jury. I do also think it's important not to understate the effect that 11 other people on the jury who would potentially be confident in Trump's guilt. What I mean by this is imagine that as the trial goes forward, the evidence that's presented and the testimony that is elicited leaves 11 of the 12 jurors, everybody but Truth Social guy, okay? The other 11 are completely convinced of Trump's guilt. It is true that one individual saying not guilty, not guilty, not guilty could hang the jury and lead to a mistrial. That's true. But social pressure is also very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And going 1 versus 11 for days or weeks, if everybody else in the room insists we're not deadlocked, we believe we can keep deliberating, and we believe that we can actually convince this individual. There's a lot of people for whom it would be very tough to just stay completely unmoved with regard to their not guilty perspective. So I think a lot of the reports about the obvious nature of this individual being determined to vote not guilty may be overblown. We will learn as this goes forward whether that individual indeed comes to be at odds with the rest of the jury or with the evidence that's presented. Breaking a deeply ingrained habit is one of the toughest things to do. Our sponsor, Fume, can make it easier. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, remove the bad from the habit. And that's, quite frankly, what Fume helps you do. Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that delivers flavored air. That's it. There's no vapor. There's no nicotine, no electronics. It's just delicious flavored air delivered by the cylindrical Fume device that fits in the palm of your hand. It comes in tasty, refillable flavors like raspberry lemon, orange vanilla, grapefruit crisp mint. The Fume device goes in your pocket. You can carry it around. It has movable parts and magnets, so if you're fidgeting or want to, it's great for that, and it's just a useful thing to break bad habits, and it provides that perfectly satisfying hand-to-mouth mechanic that many people love. Don't judge Fume until you've tried it. They have helped countless people make positive changes, and you could be next. Head over to tryfume.com and use code PACMAN to save 10% when you get the Journey Pack, which comes with the device and several flavors to try. The link is down below.